everybody. This is how to navigate the industry. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yay! Okay. So,
Go ahead and close that door because the noise, is very loud.
they'll be pro navigators after this. Okay, so let's start with some quick introductions. Why don't we start with you, Jim?
Hi, I'm James Lowder. I've been working in the industry since 1988, largely in the spaces between role-playing games, fiction, and comics. I've published several novels, including Night of the Black Rose and Prince of Lies. On the other side of the desk, I've been executive editor for Chaosium, series editor for the Forgotten Realms and Ravenloft lines in the 90s, and I've edited 22 anthologies. I'm also the professional development chair for GAMA, the Game Manufacturers Association, and an advisory board member for the Tabletop Game Designers Association.
Woo!
I'm a relative newcomer. I have been in the industry since 2000, and I started as a pricing analyst at Scholastic. Have been a freelance editor, managing editor, and most recently literary agent. I also have 3 books out and numerous short stories, and I've done 5 anthologies. And I think I will cover the agent perspective today.
Nice. Delilah.
I'm Delilah S. Dawson. I also write as Lila Bowen. I'm newer than that. My first book came out in 2012, so I might be among the newest up here. Got over 30 books in print, a couple dozen comics. I'm probably best known for Star Wars Phasma, and then I have my own books, most recently Dungeons & Dragons Ravenloft, Eric Strahd, and then short stories and novellas as well, but I'm writing in a bunch of different genres for a bunch of different age groups at the same time, so.
Yes, you do have those.
Yeah, anthologies. I'll write anything for anybody.
Mike?
Yeah, I'm Mike. I write fiction as Michael R. Underwood and do game design as Mike Underwood. I've got about a dozen book-length works of fiction out across science fiction and fantasy, a few different series. I worked in publishing as a bookseller and then a sales representative, and then I was the North American sales and marketing manager for the publisher Angry Robot Books for 5 and something years. And then most recently, I was an additional designer on Critical Role, Darrington Press's Daggerheart RPG.
Ooh. Jean?
Hi, I'm John Scalzi. I write novels.
Lots of
Yeah, a lot of them. And I'm Arley Sorg. I'm an agent with K2 Literary. I am co-editor-in-chief at Fantasy Magazine, and I work at Locus Magazine. So let's jump into it. So everyone in this room has come to what we affectionately call an industry event, or even a professional event. What are the best reasons to come to these events as a newer writer, and how does that change as writers become more established? Mike, you're nodding. Why don't you?
Sure. So I think for brand new writers, industry events can be good because there is a certain amount of vetting of the people who are speakers, and especially in the age that we're in now where there is a lot of self-publishing, there can be some really wild takes out there about what you need to do as a writer, and going to an industry event may be helpful in kind of orienting your attention and getting information that is coming from maybe some more reliable sources in terms of what people are seeing in the industry, what steps are useful to take if you're trying to do it or something like that, and then to begin building a professional network.
You look ready.
I'm always ready. Yeah, so I grew up not knowing I was neurodivergent, thinking I was just an alien or some kind of cuckoo that had been dropped in this very normal family, and I had a hard time making friends that weren't books. And then I went to college and I had a hard time making friends. And then I was a mom and I had a hard time making friends. And then I started going to author events and was like, here's where all of the aliens are. which as most of us are getting diagnosed with something on the neurodivergency spectrum these days, which explains a lot. But I really found some of my closest friends and people who really understand what I'm going through, because if you're going through the writing and publishing process, like no one in the real world can understand how hard it feels querying. And how much rejection you're getting pounded in the face with every day, or what it feels like to be on submission with editors, and every time your phone rings, you go, ah! You know, like that's, nobody gets that unless you're a writer. So it's really comfortable, and you make friends in a genuine fashion. Hopefully, there are certain people that we affectionately call star effers, who you can see are trying to use you as a ladder to climb up to more famous people, and it's usually pretty obvious. But meeting people and making genuine connections. Scalzi and I met at one of the weirdest, worst cons we've ever been to.
The worst.
In like 2013, they had a con this size and did not tell the other con that there was a writer symposium. So there was a panel with Scalzi, Richard Cowdery,
Yeah.
and Ernest Klein, with 6 people in the audience, and 5 of them were other writers. That's how badly we planned this. And so we're like brothers in arms now. And he has to put up with me for 12 years because of that.
Yeah.
Because we just happen to be at the same thing.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely true. I'm going to tell a story on the flip side of that, which is I came into the field of science fiction and fantasy from journalism, where the journalists are weird, but they are typically more neurotypical. And having come to my very first convention, which was the Worldcon in Toronto in 2003, I got there, I wandered around, I called up my wife on a payphone because that's what we had back then and we liked it. And she said, "What is it like?" And I'm like, "Oh honey, I'm at the convention of misfit toys," right? But as I have to agree with Delilah, 2 things happened. One, I met all the people who were writers, not only on all levels, from just starting off to people who had been in the field for decades. I went to a party. There was a nice older man who was leaning up against the wall, and I thought I would be charitable and chat with him. And we had a nice talk. And when he left, I was like, "Who is that nice older man that I made his day by talking to him?" And they were like, "You idiot, that's Robert Silverberg." So there was that. But the other thing that happens, again, as Delilah already mentioned, is you develop a peer group. The group of people who are having these same experiences as you are at the same time, and those are the people that you will go through basically your career with, celebrating their joys, commiserating with them about the things that are going wrong, and just seeing how everybody's career goes differently. There are other places you can do that, writers' workshops, so on and so forth. But for me, that first convention laid the foundation for my experience being part of this community. And you can call it networking, but it is also just finding your people.
Gabrielle, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, exactly what John said. My first convention as an attending professional was at Astra in Toronto in 2009, and my very first panel as a pro, I'm moderating Ed Greenwood and Robert J. Sawyer, and did my research ahead of time, got to the panel about character names, and asked them specific questions about specific names of specific characters, and introduced myself as an editor, and they said, okay. Nobody doubted me, nobody made me show credentials or prove it, and it was just instant acceptance. Okay, we accept you as the professional you are. And after that panel, Ed and I started talking in the hallway, and he said, I know the small press you work for, they're great. I would give you a novel if I could, but my agent would kill me, but I can give you a short story. And I said, well, I don't have anything to put a short story in, so how about we collaborate on an anthology? And boom, Ed and I have now done 4 anthologies and are very close friends. And he's helped me figure out how to open my own doors into game writing. And I've written for Pathfinder and Dungeons and Dragons. And he was just bragging about me to somebody yesterday about my Ravenloft adventure. And I bought my plane ticket here with my DM's Guild royalties. So this is because I took a chance and went to a conference in Toronto. And then you do see the same people again and again, not just in the same cons, but through your whole career. You're going to follow each other. You're going to run into each other in all sorts of places because this world is small. I met Arley when I was doing submissions for Apex, and then Arley bought my story for Fantasy Magazine, and now here we are again. It just keeps coming back around. Yeah.
I have pictures of John wearing a tiara.
That's when I won the Astounding Award, and they had the Astounding Tiara, and I was fetching.
It's true.
James, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, so what everybody said here, the first convention I went to as a writer, I ended up with somebody who was actually polite enough to introduce himself and not do the Bob Silverberg thing. And Roger Zelazny is asking me about my writing process, and I'm working on my first novel and thinking, what the hell? And because there isn't that division between the people who are new writers and people who have been in the industry for a long time. And you'll find that there are all kinds of ladders and potential open doors because of that. The downside, and Mike mentioned, touched upon this, there are also nothing but landmines all around that. And bad publishers and people who give you bad advice. And so the best part about this is the accessibility, and the worst part about this is the accessibility.
Okay, so that all sounds cool. But, if any of these folks are writers, then 80% of them to 90% of them are introverts and shy. So, it's great that we can meet people at these things, but how do you do that? Especially when you're an introvert and or shy. How do you meet and develop relationships? How do you meet editors? How do you meet agents? John, I feel like you want to say something.
Yeah, no, that's why I raised my hand. You picked up on that subtle clue.
Yeah.
No. I mean, hi. It's hard for people to believe that I am actually an introvert, right? Because when I come to an event like this and I'm very accessible and I go out of my way. I go do signings and I'm very cheerful and I do all that sort of stuff. All that introvert means is that when you're done, you need to go and hide in your room. And so basically a lot of what I ended up doing, some of it was professional training because as journalists you have to talk to people. But the other thing that I think is really important, for those of you who have no journalistic training, is cosplay. Your cosplay, when you come to these events, you are cosplaying as an extrovert. You are cosplaying as the person who comes and talks to people, who says hello, who goes and just is like, even if it's simple as, I just wanted to say hi and tell you I liked your stuff, or that book that you did was amazing to me, or something like that. And then run away, because you just maxed out your extrovert cosplay for the day. But do that, and it sounds sort of silly, but honestly, pretending to be the person who can't be an extrovert is so helpful, and you learn how to do it, and eventually it becomes not a cosplay, it becomes part of your personality. And what you will find is it's just a natural aspect of who you are anyway, which is some things dialed up and other things dialed down. But the important thing, as you said, the plus and minus is accessibility. If people are here, generally speaking, they are here to be accessible and so on and so forth. You can usually tell when if somebody's just hanging around, it's okay to go up and see them. If they're shoving food into their face or talking like emphatically on a phone, leave them alone. All of these things, the social clues are there. But ultimately, we are at a convention to be accessible. So just remember, put on your extrovert mask and then come out and say hello.
I mean, partly it's use your empathy, right? That's how you read the room, right? It's like the person's on the phone, they look obviously upset. Not the time to go ask, can I get in your anthology? And that happens a lot, right? And the other part of this is, one of the ways in which you can learn how to do this interaction when you interact with a pro and you walk away from that interaction feeling good about it, backwards engineering. What did that pro do that made you feel like you were valued? Because I've had interactions, and fortunately for me, and I mentioned this last one specifically because it was really early in my career, and man, was he great.
Yeah.
He was asking me questions. He doesn't need to know what my writing processes are, but he was asking it because he was showing concern and being empathetic, and he's thinking back to the early shows he was at where he ran into pros that he was a fan. And so I carried that with me and very specifically tried to pick up that and other positive and negative interactions I've had with professionals the same way. So if the pro does something that is really negative, keep it in your head. Don't do that to other people.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So Arley, do you want to get into like really specific things?
If you want.
Okay, so I'm going to show some source code from my, here is the neurodivergent mask that I have for going to conventions and being an author. Develop basically key questions that you ask people and know when to deploy them. You're at the beginning of a convention. How was your trip in? Did you have to take a long flight to get here, right? These are kind of small talk type questions. You can open with them, and then you can move into interest-based questions like, what are you working on in your writing? Have you read any books lately that you love, right? This lets you get specific into the individual field or category that you're working in and getting their perspective, not just letting them kind of gush, but also learning a little bit about who they are and their approach to writing or their opinions about the art. And if you're here and you're a science fiction fantasy writer, you're probably a science fiction fantasy reader, and then a couple of questions may get you to a place where you're a lot more comfortable and you're able to communicate just as peers who also are writers.
Delilah, yes, please.
So I think part of it is figuring out which part of extroversion or meeting people you're not great at or that you veer away from and finding a way to hack it. For me, I've used social media for that, where my brain says either you are safe or you are not safe. I'm basically a rabbit in human form. So if I can make myself believe that you are safe before I come here, I can meet you and feel like we're friends. So sometimes, I would, meet people online and say, oh, we're both going to this con, would you like to get breakfast? Or I would say, oh, I'm going to come to your panel, and I would say hello to that person. So yeah, if you can make these connections beforehand, whether it's on social media or on a forum or wherever you go to meet people, and to find people that your brain can tell you are safe. And it's also a case of almost like the improv is, you say yes and instead of no because. My first experience as a writer was I went to my local bookstore, shaking to the knees, holding my arc of my vampire romance and begging them if they would consider to carry it in their bookstore. And they're like, oh, this is so weird. This other guy came in earlier today with an urban fantasy, and nobody ever comes in here with urban fantasy. So I got his name, and I went home, and I found him on social media, and I emailed him, which I can email, like that feels safe. And I was like, hey, I'm another local person. Would you want to do a book launch party or something together? Because I don't know what I'm doing. Well, his name is James Tuck. He's an urban fantasy author. He's not as active now, but he is that big, lovable extrovert that will speak to anyone. So I got under the wing. If you can find an extrovert to take you under their wing and force you and be like, this is Delilah Beaver. I've met so many people because this 300-pound tattoo artist basically picked me up, carried me up, put me down, and said, meet these people.
That's a
So,
good hack.
yeah, find an extrovert.
Get adopted by an extrovert. Yeah.
Gabrielle, do you have anything to add? Anything you want to say?
I think in terms of like knowing when someone is approachable, if someone is kind of like, a lot of people have a lot of cool stories to tell and they end up kind of holding court, and if they're doing that, it's okay to come and listen. It's okay to join that crowd, and oftentimes they will notice you and they will, welcome you. And that's a good way to feel welcome without actually having to interact at first until you get comfortable, until you get those legs under you.
Yeah. So, how many people here are writers? Okay, that's what I thought. Based on the title of the panel. Not everyone, but most. So, for writers, they come to these things, they meet other writers, they might meet agents and editors too. is there a sort of protocol? Is there, a strategy? How do you, as a writer, talk about your work with other writers? Is there an etiquette? And how do you talk about your work with agents and editors?
So I say professionally that I'm a grammar vampire, which means that I don't correct people's grammar until I'm invited in. And I feel like it's the same way about talking about your work. I feel like this is your opportunity to be face-to-face with someone and interact with them in a personal way. Don't blow it by pitching them. Don't blow it by turning yourself into a commercial. Be a person. Just, ask them how their trip was. I don't care how big or famous they were or where they live. They have to travel to get here at least some distance, right? So that's a nice normalizing question. And if you treat someone as a person instead of, oh my God, can I get your autograph? Okay, now our transaction's done.
Right.
You have given them that opening, and you've given them that opening to be curious about you. And if you ask them what they're working on now, or you ask them, some innocuous question about their personal life, don't make it weird, then you've given them the opening to reciprocate. But again, time and place, don't pitch in the bathroom, please. Oh my God.
So Delilah, do you have anything to add? Any thoughts on this?
I feel like I remember, so I didn't go to any cons in my whole life until I was already published. I need a job to do. I don't know how to be a spectator or a casual person. Like, I need to know my job is to go from here to there, my job is to speak. So my first panels and cons happened after I had a book that I could hand people and be like, look, here is the thing it is. I've been vetted, basically. But I can tell you that there is a desperation around publishing that feels almost like a threat. And I think that plays into what you're saying, where when you're speaking to someone and they know that you want something from them, they will pull away from you. Whereas if you are more chill and genuinely trying to make a connection, they won't.
It's transactional. It's you want something from me, but you're not going to give me anything. You're just going to take something from me and go away. It's like saying, "Can I pick your brain?" If someone
Those
says,
terrifying words in English language.
yeah, I mean, first on a surface level, no, and second on a metaphorical level, that means this is a one-way conversation, and I'm not going to get anything out of it. I'm just feeding you info for free. It's not a conversation. It's not networking. It's not getting to know each other.
There's also the case where, the chance of you pitching an editor and then being like, oh my God, I've been waiting for that my whole life. I will buy it right here, right now at this Bennigan's table. It's zero.
Yeah.
So you don't need to do that.
No.
Yeah. The pressure's on. Yeah.
I think what's undergirding both of these, because I think both of these are correct, is the simple fact we're human. What? I know, right?
Speak for yourself.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, you read a lot about robots.
Yeah, yes, I know you're a rabbit in disguise, and yes, I know you're an agent. But the simple fact of the matter is that we are all human. And so two things about that. One, if you approach someone who you, like Zelazny, right? Or me with Silverberg, and if you approach them like, oh, do you know that you're Roger Zelazny? And it's like, yes, my name's on the underwear, right?
Yeah.
All of that. It makes it, I don't want to say it makes it weird, but the point is that seeing them as as this thing.
There's not a balance.
Yeah.
Right.
As opposed to there will be people who are like, why yes, in fact I am that person.
Yeah.
You may admire me now. And when you meet them, run away. Right? Because nothing good will come with it. But the fact of the matter is we are human. We do want you to ask, how was the trip in? Because I could tell you stories about the highway, which is under construction. I don't think there's enough construction here in Indianapolis. I wish there were more. No, I know. Everything's under construction and nothing moves. But the simple fact of the matter is that you can be aware in the back of your head, oh my God, 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 oh my God. But when you're talking to it, just remember they're humans You know, they get cranky, they get happy, they may want to meet people. They, you know, and especially if they're here, that's what they're here for. And just treat us like you would treat your friend. If you were to meet a friend and you were catching up on them, as we did when we came in, it's like, what are you up to? How are things? How's the book?
We did such a good job having a normal people conversation.
It was so normal, everyone. You would not believe how everyone was. And if you can keep that in mind, then you're going to have a much better thing. And then the next time they see you, it's not going to be, oh God, here's that person. It's like, oh good, here's that person.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't come up to them and say, oh God, you're so and so. They know their name.
So yeah, I mean, there's the two components of that too. When you look at it from a professional standpoint, one is when you're interacting with somebody, and this is especially agents and editors. My first conventions as a professional in the industry were as staff in the book department at TSR before I published my novel. So I've seen it both ways. When somebody comes up and they're hoping to interact with you when you are an editor or an agent, the person you're interacting with is thinking, I'm going to be working with this person for X number of months or years or whatever. And so you have to be careful about what the context of that interaction is. So if you are really weird and if you make things hard or if you are super intense, that scares people away. And so if you're hoping to make those connections, be very careful about that. The other aspect of this for editors and publishers, they're tired when they're here.
I'm very tired right now.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I was just going to say, by this point already in the show, we're all really tired. And so by Saturday or Sunday, everybody's got the 20-yard stare. There is no way they're going to remember that pitch you've got, even if it was brilliant. So what you're actually looking to do is, and this was what was already touched upon, set up those connections that say, I'm professional enough to wait to have this interaction with you through the channels that I'm supposed to. So if there's a way to submit to your anthology, or here's my card, if something opens up, keep me in mind, I'd be happy to send you writing samples, things like that. Those are the things that you can do at conventions that are reasonable. But expecting, unless the person is set up specifically to say, come in and pitch me for this product, this type of thing, that interaction, they're very unlikely to remember it 10 minutes after you walk over.
But if you can make them laugh.
Yeah. I will say that when I started editing, actually, I started just saying I was a writer because everybody has written a book and everybody is desperate. And my taxi drivers, my CT scan technician, I got pitched at my mother's funeral. Like,
Don't do that.
don't. You're here in this perfect fishbowl that's designed for you to meet professionals. Take advantage of that and take your time and don't be that desperate person. There is always the follow-up email where you can say, it was great meeting you at this convention. I have this project I would love to talk to you about. And that's the time to do that. Just make the connection.
And it takes years sometimes for these to happen. I mean, there have been anthologies that I put together that I talked to the publisher at, GenCon, and then a year later I talked to them again, and it's like, yeah, okay, we're going to move that ahead. And then the following year after that, it was actually moving. So it took conversations over, 3 shows to move that along.
And showing up and getting back in their memory.
Right.
Oh yeah, this is the guy that had that good conversation with us?
Right. Yeah, that's right. We talked about that.
Oh yeah, he's still writing. Let's see what he's up to and how he's, improved and
Right.
better his proofs and stuff.
Yep.
Mike, you've got the forward lean like you're poised to say something.
Well, so this is a topic that's got a lot of features and facets. One thing I want to add is that the other people in this room who are, the other people in the audience are, to some degree, either your peers or people who want to become your peers, right? If you're writers and you're talking to other writers. There is a lot to be gained, and other folks have talked on this. You may benefit more by befriending somebody who is at more or less the level you are and the stakes are theoretically lower because oh, this person's not famous. Yeah, but in 5 years they might be a New York Times bestseller. You can make a friend as a human. You rise with a cohort, not a solo bestseller.
Yeah. Last year I did a workshop here on comp titles and how to pick comp titles for your book. And we had everybody go around and share what their book was about and kind of workshop comp titles for each other. And 4 of those people ended up on the spot forming a critique group, and they are still together from that panel.
You look like Delilah, you look like you wanted to add something.
I did. Well, I just have a caveat, which is that you have to remember that you have different hats. So when you're the writer wearing your writer hat, this is the way that you might approach other writers or editors. When you're wearing your reader hat and you're approaching a writer who's really touched your life, feel free. Like the first time I met Peter S. Beagle, I was like, and then when I interviewed him at a different con, I was like, Peter, it's so nice to see you again. Very different hat.
Right.
That's a really good point.
One other thing I want to add here with the idea of the people that you meet in your neighborhood, which is your peer group, are going to be in many ways more important than the people who are the people you admire or the people that you can sell to. Is also remember that there's that saying: the people that you meet on your way up are the people that you will meet on your way down, right? Because every career has an arc.
No, we're all just going straight up. This is.
We're going to be different. We're going to live forever. But the simple fact of the matter is that everybody that you meet, one way or another, whether they're exalted or they're lowly, things change, people change, hairstyles change, time goes by, everything is going to shift. And the way that you approach them when you are a new person is the way that in many ways they will remember you 10, 20, 25 years later. So I'm not saying don't ever, like, if someone needs to be, there are times where you're like, no, this is not the appropriate thing, or no, you're a trash human and you must die. That's fine, but just remember, generally speaking, that all your interactions are going to be put down on your permanent record.
Yeah. Especially if you're hoping to make a long-term career of it, right? If you're not going to be a tourist, if you're going to be back at GenCon I've been to almost every GenCon since 1984, and worked every one since 1988. So I see the people every year.
Yeah.
And they remember what happened, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And it is that idea that it can be very important in ways you don't expect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I will say this about guess it was about 10 years ago. There were a group of people who made a real mess of things. And I do not wish bad on any of them, but when one of them falls down the stairs, I sit there and go, oh no.
And I've looked at projects that have them attached and been like, do I really want to contribute to these?
No, I don't think I want to. Yeah.
And it works the other way too. I've been, and this is even with professionals who were much more successful when I met them. When I was putting anthologies together that had Peter Beagle and different people in it, you know what? No. I'm not going to ask you for a reprint because you were a jerk to me at this convention.
Yeah.
And that's the way it works.
I remember some shit.
We all remember some
I'm an agent and editor, so.
Right.
So I feel like self-care is super important. At places like this, at events, but also as people in this industry, it can be a really difficult industry. You're going to get rejections, you're going to get people trashing your work. I feel like self-care, managing your health, managing your emotions, your mental state is really important at a bunch of different stages. Can you guys talk about how you do self-care, what you see as really important in that light? Yeah.
So my very first book, I was super excited. I knew that it was going to shoot to the top of the bestseller list automatically and everyone was going to love it, so I put out Google alerts. And then I learned the hard truth that there are some reviews that are not kindly written. There are people that don't read the book that will just judge it by the cover. Or I saw a review on Goodreads that made me cry, and I was like, you know what, I don't think I need Google Alerts anymore. So I don't go looking for reviews. I don't go to Goodreads. Goodreads is for readers. It is not for writers. I'm not going to learn anything there that's going to make me a better writer. I'm going to see 600 people with different opinions. So I don't look at, if someone tags me, it's like, I love this book, 5 stars, I'll be like, did you? Okay, I'll look at that. Very like Sally Fields, you like me. But otherwise, I stay away from reviews 100%.
Nice.
You know?
I hate the people who tag with negative comments.
Yeah, I do.
That's rude.
Why?
Please let me poke you in the eye.
Gabrielle, you look like you wanted to say something.
Work-life balance. Writing is a solitary career. Most of us in the industry at this point work from home. Knowing when to turn off the computer and walk away is really important. Like if you're reading work emails on your phone in your off time, you're still clocked in. You're still doing work. Agents start out like super excited about reading queries, and they're like, well, I'm just going to check the box once more before I go to bed, and I'm going to check the query box first thing in the morning. No, you don't need to do that to yourself. They're still going to be there. And your writing is still going to be there, even if you take time out to go have a meal, or go have a shower, or go spend some time with your loved ones, or go out and have an experience that can then inform your writing and influence you and inspire you. So all of those things are very important, and I think it's still kind of in to say, well, I can sleep when I'm dead, but like, don't do that to yourself. Sleep is amazing.
I feel
You're right,
targeted right now.
Yeah, me too. I was like, yeah, right. This is a great in theory. But the idea too, especially if you're writers, this is really hard because you watch a movie and you think, I could write a review of it. There's an essay anthology. I could write something for about this. So building that separation is very difficult. The other part of that you need to develop for yourself is a sense of why you're here and what you're doing. That will help you not chase opinions through reviews and things like that. So if you build up an idea of your own work and what you value in your work and what you're trying to achieve as a writer, and you can look at your work apart from all of this other transactional stuff and where you are in the hierarchy when you go to shows, you're going to be much better off. It's going to allow you to center yourself.
Remember to have fun.
Yeah.
I don't publish anything that I'm not happy with, and that is really important because when inevitably I get the negative reviews, and I get a lot of them, right? Then I'd be like, okay, because quite simply, I know that what I did was what I wanted to have out there in the world. And if you have that confidence and happiness with what you have written and done, then you can just accept the fact that everybody's opinion is everybody's opinion. Quite honestly, think about the people whose work you've admired the most. It doesn't have to be writers, it could be musicians, all that sort of stuff. Now think of that one piece of work they did that you were like, right? And that is like everybody has that thing. It's like, I love everything you do except that one thing. Don't tell that to them, by the way, because I get a lot of nerds who don't know when to stop talking, and they're like, I love everything you did except that one book that you did, and I don't understand why you did that, but it's okay because I like everything else, and by the way, I think you're cool, except for that one thing. And we all laugh, but we've all been there.
I was new back then.
You were. Yes, you were.
The other part of that too is understanding that different people will have different measures of success.
Right.
If you're looking, for me, the book is only successful if it's a bestseller, or for me, it's only successful if I can get praise from these markets or these people.
Right.
Everybody's going to define that differently, and that's where if you can center yourself on, I'm happy with the work that I'm creating.
Yeah. And I actually want to add to that. I have this philosophy which I call sufficiency.
Yes.
And what that means is, the very first time I sat down to write a novel, I was like, I'm not going to try to sell this.
Yeah.
The only thing I want to do with this is to see if I can write a story over 80,000 words. And I did. It was a success the minute I typed the end. It didn't have to sell. It didn't have to do anything else. The next time is like when I got published, or when someone said, I want to buy your book. I was like, this is amazing. All the people who want to write novels, I have actually written one and now it's going to be published, all right? The first time I got nominated for something, I'm like, this is amazing. How often does that happen? At every level, what I really made a conscious effort to do was to appreciate where I was at. And even if all I had ever done was write that novel of 80,000 words, even if it never got sold, I had written a novel. How many people say, I want to write a novel, and yet don't do it? So every single step that you're at, you go, this actually is cool, this is actually kind of sufficient, even if I go no further than this is still what I've achieved, and how awesome is that?
Yep.
He's running an hour.
You are 10 off.
What?
You are 10 off.
I am getting up.
Yeah,
Delilah.
so writing is a very sedentary occupation, and as you get older, your body will ossify until you can't move anymore. So movement is great. Movement helps with writer's block a lot, whether it's going for a walk or getting in water. Movement is often the answer to breaking your brain out of its little loops. Movement helps you sleep better. I started weightlifting, and I feel strong now, and I wish I'd been doing this my whole life. It has changed my life and improved my writing life. So, you know, if you're going to commit to being a writer and you know you're going to be sitting down for 3 hours a day, like, set an alarm on your phone and every hour get up and do 10 air squats. Anything like that, but like, movement is the key.
Yes. So we're coming towards the end of the panel. I'm going to take a few audience questions and then we'll do some last thoughts.
Okay.
Audience questions, yes.
Okay. So I'm actually a freelance editor. I'm neurodivergent and shy. I've got my thing written here because I have the script. Most of us are neurodivergent and shy and are terrified of networking. We are terrified of meeting writers. And how do we, you answered kind of a little bit of this earlier, how do we not come off as predators? But also, is it okay for me when I meet a writer to say, hey, I'm shy, neurodivergent, and socially awkward? How do I, not come off as a total gibbering idiot when I'm trying to meet somebody who I hope will pay me? Like, writers hope to be paid, but I want someone to pay me. How do I do this?
So to restate the question, we have someone who's a freelance editor.
Yes.
Freelance editor, how do we not come off as a predator or a blathering idiot? How do we come off as, slick and smooth and friendly?
Well, not
You
even.
you definitely will come off and slick and smooth, but here's the thing. The writer's world is full of neurodivergent people, and honestly, if you just say, just so you know, I'm a little neurodivergent. If you could just say that up front, that's gonna keep me from spending a whole lot of time going, are they neurodivergent or are they weird?
Part of the question was, is it okay to say I'm an introvert and I'm shy?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. No, it's perfectly okay, because like I said, we're in the circle of trust. We're all fucking weird, we're all introverts to some extent. Well, almost all of us are introverts to some extent or another. Some of us are neurodivergent to some extent or another. Some of us are just generally shy, which is not, these are all overlapping circles. It's okay to acknowledge that these are the things. Speaking as someone who gets a lot of people coming up to them, the folks are like, I'm just so you know, I'm a little, this way. And I'm like, cool. Adjustments are made for expectations, and it's fine. Disclosure is a great thing. It's okay to admit it. There's of all the audiences and all the people that you can just admit that to and have that as just up front. This is certainly the one.
So
We need to make a pay people to do it.
Yeah, no.
yeah, okay. This is the arts community for all of that, so that's important. The other part is if somebody responds to you negatively when you do that and you are being you and kind, they're telling you don't work with you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, you.
Yes. So not only am I neurodivergent and shy, I am also foreign. I have no interest in immigrating to the United States, but I would like to get into the U.S. writing industry because I primarily write in English. I'm Mexican.
Yeah.
I have already written a book in Spanish and published it, and it was great when I was a teenager. So now I'm writing on like a book as an adult. It's primarily in English, so I can't quite well publish it in my country. So is there like a way to get into the American industry from a distance?
So to restate the question, is there a way for authors who are not from the US to get into the US markets?
Are you translating your own work into English?
I'm writing it in English.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, then you would be going through the same pathways that any other author would be looking at. It's an international market.
I'm curious to hear Gabrielle's thoughts as an agent.
Yeah, absolutely. We get international submissions all the time.
Okay.
It's perfectly
thank you.
common and accepted and welcome to work with people in foreign countries. You know, our accounting is set up for that. We expect it. We treat it exactly the same as any other submission. It doesn't matter where you are. Thanks.
Mike, you worked at Harbowy, which is a UK publisher. Do you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, so the majority of the authors that Angry Robot published were from the US or the UK, and I worked in the US and Canadian distribution part, right? So I was recruiting authors from the US who were then published by legally a UK publisher, and then it had the US version, right? If you're already writing in English, you probably have overcome the biggest barrier to publish in the English language market. And so that's like a huge upside. Another thing to look for is who are the people within your region who are also publishing into English, right? Because they will be dealing with those same challenges of publishing across legal borders.
In addition to that, and this has been my own experience talking to publishers about foreign publication, it's actually easier for someone in another country, primarily in another language, who is already writing in English to get published than in translation, because America's awful in terms of doing translation. We occasionally do something from China these days, and I believe a couple of people from Germany, but generally speaking, the fact that you're writing in English is just a huge leg up.
Other questions? Sean?
People can change. You can change what you write. You can change how you want to sell yourself as an author. How do you handle those pivots in your career?
People could change. They can change what they want to write. They can change what they want to sell. How do you handle those pivots in the career? Delilah?
Yeah, so when I was at the query stages, I was querying. My very first book was like a fantastical chicklet, and I was already writing middle grade adventures. And I was looking at Agent Query and Query Tracker. I was actively looking for agents that represented multiple genres, because I knew I was going to be not the kind of horse you could corral, but it was going to be all over the place. And was actively looking for that. And then when I got to the point of having the call with the agent, I made it clear, like, I'm going to be writing for, romance and middle grade and this and that and all over the place. So you want to set it up that way, which is kind of hard, because you're looking for as many agents as you can query, and having to say, well, they don't represent one of the things I want to write. But maybe they'd still be okay. Like, do yourself a favor and set it up from the start that you're looking at that swath. And then if you need to set up pen names, I have a couple different pen names. I have one because I went with a different publisher, so that one's under a different pen name. I have a new pen name starting next year because I'm going back into romance, and I'm best known now for science fiction, fantasy, and horror.
Yeah.
So just be, prepared to have some different versions of your name. I wanted to write under Dick Manley and wear a hat. He said no, so don't try that. That's my name one day.
It sounds like you have the Shannon problem. Like, you just have so much stuff that you're writing.
It's not a problem. And also, playlists can help. If you're a person who needs that kind of behavioral conditioning, if you make a playlist for that book, it can help you kind of get right into that without having to do the 10 minutes of, okay, I'm going to write it, and I'm going to do it, here we go. But you're just like, boom, I'm there.
One last question. Yes.